You are listening to the Willpower Podcast. Welcome to the show. I am Will Holdren, and I talk with some of the most influential CEOs, entrepreneurial leaders, and thought leaders to try and reveal the secrets that has led to their success. I believe that with the right knowledge and mindset, you can do anything you set your mind to. So if you want to learn how to change your life for the better, if you want to learn how millionaires actually became wealthy, or if you want to develop and start your own business from the ground up with the right knowledge to help you, then you are in the right place because this is the Willpower Podcast.
Nowhere that we go is a one-way street. Nothing that we love is a one-day key. And if we gon' do it, we gon' do this now. And if we say we gon' hold this down.
How's it going, everyone? My name is Will Holdren, and I am the host of the Willpower Podcast. Today, we have an amazing guest, and his name is Brian Hall. He's actually based out of the Pennsylvania marketplace, and Brian is the founder and CEO of Rehab1, and they focus in specialized care, in physical, occupational, and speech therapy in private homes and also senior living communities. So it's an absolute honor to have him on here today. He's growing an established business. So first and foremost, Brian, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, Will, good to be here, man.
My pleasure. I'm excited. I've heard a lot about you and your story. And so I want to ask you a question that I always ask my guests starting out podcasts. But what I want to know is, why do you want to come on the podcast like these and kind of share your story and just kind of share with other people what you've already done so far successfully in your life?
I think it's just a way to pay it forward. I think you really can learn a lot from mentors. And if it took them years to get where they are, and if you can kind of understand that and apply it, to your story, I think you can get from point A to point B a lot quicker. So that kind of what makes me kind of do things like this.
Yeah, well, I love that. It's a great mission. That's also why I'm doing the podcast, kind of share stories of other successful people such as yourself, and kind of relay those steps to success with people that are listening to this podcast. And
Yeah.
so growing up, were you always entrepreneurial, or when did you kind of get the entrepreneurship bug to kind of go out there and start building out your own things?
Yeah, great question. Someone just asked me that. And no, I think that at a young age, I really wasn't entrepreneurial. I started a landscaping company, like in fourth or fifth or sixth grade with my brother. I don't know, that didn't go too long. And then after college, when I got out of physical therapy school, I did start a vending machine business. It just was random. I just kind of found a little passion to it. So now that I'm kind of thinking about it, yeah, I guess I had a little entrepreneurial bug, but nothing like crazy, right? I think, starting Rehab1, I did just have the idea. And I saw in our marketplace other companies doing what we currently do. And I just thought there was value in doing something a little bit different. I thought I could bring value to the marketplace doing it the way I envisioned. So yeah, I sat down with two of my mentors, two therapists who have been in the industry for years, and took them out to a bar, and we just sat there over a beer and just talked it out a little bit. And that was the start of it.
That's awesome. That's super cool. And obviously it's worked out for you, which is fantastic to see now, right? Full fold. So did you start Rehab1 directly out of college, or did you go into physical therapy, doing 9 to 5 stuff for a little bit, kind of training yourself? And then how long did you wait to start Rehab1?
Yeah, great question. So came out of college, I was 22, worked in multiple different facets in physical therapy, whether it's hospital-based, whether it's sports medicine, orthopedic outpatient, did some home care. So I wanted to see a ton, and I just worked a ton of hours just to really get a full understanding, just what I enjoy, what I like, and to become a better physical therapist. I wanted to see that whole spectrum of coming out of the hospital, say if they had a total knee, total hip, and then when I would see them in an orthopedic outpatient setting, and then or if I saw them in a home care setting, so you could kind of see that whole health spectrum with that continuum of care. And yeah, so I started our company when I was 28, so 17 years ago. So yeah, so there was probably a stretch, 6 years that I really felt that I needed to kind of get a full good understanding of being a good PT.
Yeah.
Before I really started to wanting to set up my own shop.
That's awesome. And I really love that journey in that story, because I feel like so many young entrepreneurs are just so gung-ho, right? Whether just skipping college altogether, or as soon as you graduate college, trying to jump into that business right away and really start building it on your own right away. But like you mentioned, you have to get that kind of experience and that knowledge, and it's not bad to kind of go into that field for a couple of years like you're talking about. and really dive into that field to get a really good understanding before you go out onto your own. Right. So, I mean, yeah. So what would you say to those entrepreneurs that are kind of want to jump into it right away or debating whether or not to go into that field first?
Yeah, I could see both sides. The way I looked at it is here, I went to multiple companies and I worked for multiple companies and I saw what really worked well, I thought, right? And where I thought, oh, I like that. I like the way they approach that. I like the way they talk to their employees or their team. And I also don't like how some companies did that as well. And I really took that to heart of, hey, when I get our company, this is how I want to talk and engage to the team. This is the other stuff, on the culture side. This is not what I want to do. So I think you can still learn that if you start right out of college. I think it just takes a little bit. It's going to take more time, I feel, to figure out what works and what doesn't. But I think at the end of the day, I really wanted to just kind of grind my teeth and really get a good understanding working for someone else in different areas, to really fully understand physical therapy and different companies, how they're set up and what works, what doesn't, processes, systems, etc.
Right. And that's a great answer. I think what you're basically mentioning is along the lines. There's no really right or wrong answer. It's just going to be different. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you got to find out what really is going to work for you and make it
Yeah.
work at the end of the day. So you mentioned at 28, you finally went out and started Rehab1 on your own. You kind of left the 9 to 5 world and
Yep.
made that jump totally on your own, which is very amazing. And so kind of walk me through what that transition was like for you. Was it like a scary mental jump because so many people have a great idea, want to go into the business, but just making that transition, that
Yeah.
upfront investment, it's so scary. It's so hard for them to kind of make the jump out there. So how was that, you know,
Yeah.
180
Yeah.
like for you?
So I'll definitely try to tell a good story so everybody understands what I did. So I was kind of working my 9 to 5 job, doing home care. And I told the company who I was working for at the time, I said, hey, I'm going to start my own company, part B, doing this outpatient world stuff. It's not going to impact my patient care, etc. So I did that on the side. So after I saw my patients, then I worked extra hours later in the day on the weekends. And I just took all that money and I put it aside and I just kept growing that money over years, probably about a year that I did that. And I need, to me, just how I like to operate. I wanted to have a cushion. So then I know when I kind of said, all right, I'm going to stop working, my normal 9 to 5 gig and then transition over to my own company. I needed a cash cushion so then I could just feel at ease, right?
Right.
So it took about 12 months. My first employee was my mother. So I was living at home
Good for
when
you.
I kind of started it or thinking about starting it. And she was my first employee. She was my biller, and we learned how to do the billing together. And then she started it up, and then yeah, and then kind of was off to the races at that point.
That's awesome. Well, it sounds like, from someone listening to this podcast, like you've had it so like perfect, right? You went to college, you did the training, you just put away money like every single weekend. You weren't going out blowing at bars every single weekend like a lot of people do coming out of
Oh, I
college.
did that. Oh, I
Okay,
definitely did that till age 24, 25.
okay,
And
okay.
then I think I had an awakening. And I got into real estate and started flipping homes and all that. But yeah, probably up to 24, 25, I definitely had some fun of just let's go to the bars with my buddies and just
Yeah.
let's get at it. So I definitely did that piece well.
Yeah, okay, okay. Well, that
Yeah.
sounds good. But what happened? Let's touch on that a little bit. So what happened at 24, 25 when you made that switch really from, being kind of reckless with how you're using money to,
Mhm.
what I'm planning for my future, for my business, my future business. I'm going to put this money away and kind of develop that discipline because a lot of people struggle with that too. I think
Yeah.
a lot of people go on that credit card debt that can't really get out of the 9 to 5 job ever because of that. They don't save money. And that's why a
Yeah.
lot of people work paycheck to paycheck, right? Because they
Yeah.
can't develop that discipline. So how were you able to make that switch?
Yeah, 100%. I think where I kind of started having a realization was just like, all right, here I am. I'm having a ton of fun with my buddies and all. I don't have a lot of money in the bank account. And it's just like, how am I going to make an impact in life? Right. I think to me, it's like, how do you add value? It's always one of those questions that I ask myself is how do you add value? And I don't care if you're just adding value to one person, 100 people, or a million people, but it's like start to add value. And by asking those questions, I've always been, I love to learn, but I love to learn my stuff that I wanted to learn. It's not like I just wanted to pick up a book and just start learning about geography or something like that, or pick up a new language. That's just not what drives me. But business books, how to become a better person, right? That just drove me. So I started doing a lot of self-learning for myself of looking at successful people and what do they do? How do they do it? And that's where it just started. Like I just started reading books, and buying videotapes or audio tapes, CDs of how to become the best version of myself. But then also on the business side, what do I need to start doing? And so it was reading and just constantly reading. Uh, and then I think just hearing different stories and different strategies, it started to come together.
Yeah.
But that was around the 24-year-old mind, timeline. And my father always was into real estate, not big, but just would own a property here or there. And then, in doing a lot of that reading, real estate came up, owning real estate, right? And so it just was like one of my passions, and still is one of my passions, is flipping homes with my wife. I love the construction, the project management side of things. She loves the design side of things. So it just kind of fell into place. So I bought my first place at 24. We ended up flipping it like within 3 months, and then got our next place, and then I got another place. So yeah, kind of went down that road.
Yeah, it makes sense. It really sounds like you got that personal development bug, right? And then
Yeah.
reading more, and then eventually you turn to real estate because that's what everyone talks about for passive income. It's funny you mention that because 99% of my guests on the podcast, whether they're doing, Rehab1 stuff or their own business, they're all involved in real estate, like one way or the other, right? Because and real quick, guys, before we go on to the next subject, I want to talk to you guys about a way that can really help you guys, maintain great energy and also an amazing focus during the day, and it's a lot healthier than coffee. I recently came across it's this company called Magic Mind. And what Magic Mind does is a variety of things, but mainly it's going to give you sustained energy. It's going to help you reduce your stress, and it's also going to help you relax and focus during the day, which is amazing. It's got really healthy ingredients in it as well. One of the ones that I want to talk about is an ingredient called lion's mane mushroom. And this actually helps you to balance your mood and also improv cognition. I've been using it for about a week now. I can already tell the differences in my own work schedule while I'm doing my podcast, my other businesses. And it's really helped me throughout the day. And so, guys, going into 2024, it's a great way to help you guys crush your resolutions by staying fully focused. You can get 1 month free when you subscribe for 3 months. Just use the code willpower20. Click on the link below to use that code, and you're going to actually get an extra 20% off, which gets you to 75% off on your subscription. So guys, take advantage of this, start your year off strong, and go check out Magic Mind and start using it. Another point I want to mention is, so when you make that switch into personal development, I think it's really a steep slope for some people to kind of have perfectionist goals, right? Like, I'm not going to do this ever. I'm not going to do this ever. I want to be the perfect version of myself. And it turns into a really boring life for them, right? Because you're cutting out all these things at once. And so, I've seen it on my own journey as well. It changes so much. And I think it's important to be able to do stuff in moderation, right? Not doing it 100% one way or 100% the other way. Like, you got to enjoy life at the same exact time too, right? And again, that's a personal decision, but I think, personally for me, it's doing some stuff in moderation in order to help you get those goals right at the end of the day.
100%. You got to enjoy life. And then plus you got to be a little easy on yourself, right?
Yeah.
No one's perfect. I keep telling my kids, like, don't strive for perfection. Like, I want you to try stuff and fail and figure out what you like and what you don't like. And I think if you go for that perfection mindset,
yeah,
I just think I think it really hinders someone for just striving for the stars. I really do. So I just think it's like, go at it. I always kind of now figure out, even if we're running a project and we're rolling something new out in our company, like, you can sit around and talk about it, design it, and then when you implement it, years ago, I thought it was a straight line. You get it from point A to point B to point C, and you will execute that plan. I think now I know it's like, all right, you execute, right? You talk about strategy, you implement it, you start it. And then I think you're going to run into stuff, right? You're going to run into roadblocks. Well, so, okay, do you go through them? I don't always think that's the right call. Sometimes you got to course correct. And I think you got to do that in your personal life as well. You got to take a temperature. Like, I always like to sit back on my Sundays and just say, okay, what's working? Let me look and analyze my personal life. let me analyze my professional life. And I don't do it for 2 hours. It could be 15 minutes. Hey, am I spending enough time with my wife? Am I spending enough time with my kids? Am I spending enough time, kind of with myself? Am I exercising? Am I doing things, my hobbies that I'm passionate about? Because that recharges my batteries, not working 80 hours a week. Believe me, I love to work and it really just charges me, amps me up. But I want to be a well-rounded person. So I want to take into account, am I meeting all the needs?
100%. You got to have that good balance in life, and you got
Yeah,
to be able to adapt. That's one of the key qualities of an entrepreneur, just so you're talking about enjoying things, right? Besides
yeah.
work. And
Gotta
I think a
enjoy
lot
the
of people,
journey, man. You
yeah,
gotta enjoy it.
exactly. And I know especially a lot of people, my age or even younger, they're on social media, right? They're on Instagram all the time. They're seeing these entrepreneurs like posting a fake life. You know what I mean? Getting up at like 3:30 a.m. and just making it sound like it's this every single day. Just no off days. You can't do anything wrong. And it just sets a false narrative, and it really
Yeah,
hurts people. But
yeah. Too regimented, too robotic for me. But
yeah.
yeah, I don't think I would enjoy that.
Yeah, yeah, no
So,
doubt. So I want to jump back into your company here for a little bit. So at 28, you
yeah.
started it. So were there any hiccups, any roadblocks early on for you, or was this smooth sailing all the way to the top of where you're at now with
Man,
multiple
there's
locations?
been a million and one blocks, a million. So
Yeah,
just with insurance reform and having to change stuff and consultants coming in and telling me one thing and it's not the right thing. It's just, I think there's been an amazing amount of roadblocks. And I think you have to be aware. And I think it's one of those things, that course correction. Believe me, I've become very upset and, pissed at myself and saying, man, you should be at this level. You
yeah,
should be at 20 million, 50 million. And I think you got to pause for a second and just say, man, like, look at all the good you're doing. Look at all the team members and all the impact we're having on the patients, throughout the state of Pennsylvania. So I think you kind of get in this trap of seeing these amazing entrepreneurs who are the 0.0001%, who are absolutely crushing it. You don't see the other 99.9% of small businesses and entrepreneurs, who are successful, but they're just not, they just don't have that trajectory. So yeah, there's many roadblocks that I run into, whether it's daily, whether it's weekly, whether it's monthly or quarterly. So I don't know if you want to get into that. I certainly will share, but yeah, go for it,
yeah.
man.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I guess we'll jump into that a little bit more here. So what do you think has been the biggest challenge for you so far on your own like business journey and kind of growing to how many locations you guys have today? What's been the number one issue?
Say the biggest, and say your question again, Bill, because I think I know it and I want to make certain I answer it correctly. Go for it.
Yep. So what has been the number one most challenging problem you've had to overcome so far from when you started your company to where you are at now?
Yeah. So I have a tendency of wanting to do everything.
Yeah.
So it was one of those key things I had to understand and make certain you bring on the right team member who's, their God-given talent is whatever you want to get rid of, right? Make sure you teach them appropriately and then keep them accountable and then you keep scaling. So it's hard for me to kind of delegate a lot of things. Now I'm much better at it because now I want to get to the point that I'm spending my time, whether it's my 40, 50, 60 hours a week, doing the stuff I love, that are my God-given talents. So that's been probably the hardest thing I've had to learn of how do I properly delegate it? How do I get the right team member on my team, educate them, and get them kind of headed in the right direction? And then I can afford that and then keep heading up.
Yeah, that's always an important task, right? Like you said, to not put everything on your hands over time.
And then I think you have to understand too, it's not all going to be done like you do it, right? And I think I had to be okay with saying, okay, this task is going to get done, but it's not going to get done the way Brian does. Is it going to get done? Yes. And make certain you set a certain level, but it's not going to get done the way technically I go about it, maybe my 5 steps or whatever it is. And I had to become okay with that. And it took a little while. It took a little while, but hey, if you want to go from one person in your company to 10 people to 50 people, you have to start becoming okay with that. And I think if you get the right person, then they're going to do a good job.
Yeah. How many locations do you guys currently have now with Rehab1?
Yes, we have 13 clinics, and we kind of really set up shop in senior living communities. So.
Okay. Fantastic. And so obviously growing from 1 to 13, I mean, that's a huge accomplishment. And like you said, I think the biggest issue for you, right, was that delegation, kind of getting people to kind of replicate you in these other scenarios.
Right.
So obviously it's kind of been panning out in that situation. But going forward for you, I mean, what's your future goal? Like, how big are you trying to grow it? Do you have anything in mind for that? Or is it just go as big as you can?
Yeah, you know what? When I started the company back in 28, I don't know, I don't think it was an ego thing, but I wanted to be nationwide. I no longer want to be nationwide. And I think it's because of the insurance reimbursement. I know enough now that there are some states you just can't touch because you probably wouldn't even not only not make money, but you probably lose money. So to me, now that I know a lot more, I would look at strategic states. But I think, where I'm looking at it is we always have a 10-year goal. And what we're looking at is multi-states, I would say Pennsylvania, Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia. Those probably four immediate states, having probably up to 150 team members within the next 5 years, but really making an impact. And what we look at is patient impact. How many patients' lives are we touching, right? How are we impacting? So that's kind of where we set our benchmarks and have those metrics around that.
Awesome. And I know you mentioned as well, you guys go into senior living communities. Are you guys the only rehabilitation company that really does that, or are there other people that kind of?
There's others. Yep, there are other companies that do and work in our same space.
Okay. And how do you feel that your business model is kind of different than these other companies' business models, which ultimately makes you guys, more successful? Obviously, you guys are expanding like crazy and having a ton of growth. So kind of what's your secret to that business model you guys are kind of exploring?
I think it's staying focused. It's staying focused on our core mission. I think, as you continue to grow any company, I think there's shiny stuff that's like, oh, well, we can start doing that too. And oh, we can start doing that over here. And, we're going to start offering more to our offerings. And I think at first glance, it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. But I think what we've been able to really do is try to stay laser focused on what we do and how we do it, and do it the best. Do it the gold standard in our marketplace. And we have partners who do, other parts of care, but we're not going to get into that channel. Let them do that work. Let us stay focused on the outpatient physical occupational speech therapy, but do it the best. So
Gotcha. That's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah. Obviously you guys are, right? And I think that's so important, having that innate focus, right? And also having that company mission statement, that company core values, where people can all kind of get aligned and follow into the same setting, just like you're talking about. So I think that's a huge plus, for any company.
And I'll do a quick plug, and it's not like I don't get anything out of it, but has anybody ever talked about EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System?
I have not heard of that.
So I started, when I started our company 17 years ago, we quickly grew it, and within year two, we're starting to expand into multiple communities. And I didn't want to water down effect from community 2 to community 3 to community 4. I could only do so much. So what was painting in my head was like infrastructure, systems, processes. So I was doing a lot of reading, was reading like a great book called E-Myth, and I just loved it. It's kind of like taking the McDonald's prototype and just like, how do you replicate, right?
Right.
And I was thinking, all right, we need something like that to be able to grow and scale, because I'm only one person. I can't be able to scale this beyond 3 or 4 sites. So talked to a bunch of friends and mentors, and came across this EOS. And it's called Entrepreneurial Operating System, but it's for small businesses, and it's been fantastic. So it looks at 6 key indicators, and it really talks about process and systems and how to really effectively, replicate your business. And coming out of physical therapy school, we got trained in physical therapy and all that stuff. Didn't get trained in finance, didn't get trained in like simple business 101 stuff. And this is what it was. So I got to be honest with you, that has gotten me out of some really hairy times with economy changes, with insurance changes. And if anybody's listening, I know there's other systems out there, but I will put it out there. To me, it's a great system. It's a simple system. And most importantly, I didn't want to be owned by my company. And I think when everybody starts their business, they're all going to think like, oh man, I can take off whenever. Like, yeah, you can take off whenever, but man, you're not going to take off for the next 10 years because you're going to work 80 hours.
9 to 5 turns to
And
24/7. Exactly.
yeah, I just didn't want it to own and then like, I just didn't want it to own me. Like, that's not fair to me personally. I love to surf and ski. I love to do a lot of stuff, but I couldn't do that if I was working 80 hours, right?
Yeah.
So it just gave me a good platform to be able to scale and then being able to kind of take myself out of it and have it run itself. And I'll just put it out there, people can look at it. I just think it's been really good for me.
Yeah.
I think that it could be good for a lot of entrepreneurs to get their life back, right? Or at least if you're starting out, it's really something good to look at. So yeah, be good.
The basics of the model sound fantastic. Just like building any franchise, like you said, you got to put two pickles in the bun. You need something that can just copy and paste into
That's it, man. That's it. I keep going back to that. It's like, how do you start with a great foundation? Just because to me, like customer service, I love, and how do you replicate it? How does everybody get that same experience? And I just kind of geek out with stuff like that. And it's a good model for me. It was.
Yeah, definitely. And so I want to be time conscious. I got one more question for you.
Yeah.
But, so based on the EUS system, is there a book people can read on that? Is it more like just Google it and find out?
Their foundation book is called Traction. And I think it's a fantastic read. I just think, I would, then they have, consultants that can help implement it. And I know people try to self-implement it. I think I would highly recommend reaching out to, they call them implementers. If you're at a certain level, I think if you're under maybe 100,000, I probably wouldn't implement it. It's just, it can be a lot of money, but to me, it's like, I would have scale quickly. So someone can come in and run that and we just scale it. I think it's doable, but I would be conscious of the amount of money, the revenue and profit your company's, shedding off, and if it's going to be appropriate or not. But they might mention it in the book, but it's a fantastic read. I just do a lot of my book reads on Audible, but it's an awesome book, whether you get it on Audible or whether you get it just,
Sounds
sent
good.
to you. So,
Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. And real quick then, before we hop off, I mean, is there anything else that you'd like to say? And if people want to reach out to you, how can they go about and find you?
Yeah, I'm pretty quiet. I'm not a big social media guy at all. Yeah, I guess you can just reach out, like look at me on LinkedIn, and if you have questions, yeah, feel free to reach out. I always enjoy kind of talking to entrepreneurs and guiding them, within reason. If you ask the right questions, yeah, I'll certainly help you out. I always enjoy helping people. So yeah, reach out on LinkedIn, Brian Hall, Rehab1.
Awesome. All right, guys, there you have it. Brian Hall, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, Will. Thank you.
Nowhere that we go is a one-way street. Nothing that we love